Hello, everyone. I am Chrysanthi Stetou, journalist, newsroom editor at Insider.gr, and I will be the moderator for our first session. Please do not forget to follow our hashtag FrontRunners2022 and to send your questions under the streaming of each speaker. Let's welcome Mrs. Amaryllis Angouridaki and Mr. Orestis Pantelis Angouridakis, co-founders of PyCube, Plastic Pollution Prevention, and Mr. Sotiris Milonas, Sustainability Consulting, Civil Engineering, MBA, and together they will speak on the subject Sustainable Sports Events. So the stage is yours, Mr. and Mrs. Angouridaki.
Hello, thank you very much for the invitation in such educative event as this one. So, what the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the phrase sustainable sport events? Most probably the most popular answer is going to be find a way to recycle the bottles that are going to be consumed during the event. But this is much more than that. Basically, everything that it has been produced and consumed during an event, or every human activity that it has been done during an event, all that has a footprint, a carbon footprint, energy footprint, and environmental footprint. So basically what sustainability do is that we create a checklist and we try to find the most effective ways on how to reduce the environmental impact during an event. However, all that is affected on the human behavior. So even if everything is perfectly planned, from the organizers' approach, from the volunteers, for the athletes, for the fans' approach, all this matters in order to make an event to be successful and environmental friendly. So this is what we are trying to discuss today about sustainable sports events. My name is Orestis Pantelis Angouridakis, and together with my sister Amaryllis, we founded PI3.gr, Plastic Pollution Prevention, and Amaryllis.
Good afternoon. Just a small introduction for our organization. P3, Plastic Pollution Prevention, founded in 2019. Throughout the year, we have done a lot of books and workshops, seminars, but our main mission is to combine sustainable sport events. We're both athletes. We have the in our courses, so we wanted to combine this love of both and introduce P3. So here you can see some main statistics of our results since 2020. Of course, we had a pause of 1 year and a half due to pandemic, but we have managed to do a lot of things since then.
If you could please get closer to your microphone, Amaryllis.
Yes. So here you can see. So here you can see that sustainability is about combining three main pillars: economic, environmental, and social pillars. These three pillars are informally referred to as people, planet, and profits. Here you may see the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and how they are combined with the three main pillars of sustainability. And what is sustainability? What are we talking about? The definition comes from Brundtland Report in 1987 and said that sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. For us, throughout our main actions, and especially the sport events, we are trying to raise awareness, and especially for the new generations. We know that all the sport events have main impact in different age types, so we are trying to approach all of the ages to be part of the change, because in order to see the change in the world, we have to change ourselves. So here you can see the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and which goals are relevant to the sport events. Of course, you can see that good health and well-being and gender equality are the main goals, but afterwards, in order to approach sustainability, we have to see those goals above: SDG 12, SDG 13, 14, and 15. All of them combine those main objects of our planning when we participate in a sustainable event. It's time to take sustainability out of the green box. Sustainability is about more than just being green. It's about achieving excellence, doing things more efficiently, and creating a positive impact. It contributes to the development of the economy and tourism. It is an effective branding tool for event owners, organizers, and hosts. It is very important to remember that sustainability, it is a built-in rather than a bolted-on procedure. For us, it's on the center of every operational activity. So when we are planning an event, we combine those 5 objectives, which depend on the event, if it is an open water swimming, if it's a trail running. Those main objectives have higher or slower impact. So when we are called to do the best of the event and create a sustainability plan, we are trying to find the better solution to achieve and reduce the environmental footprint of the event. As you may see here, these 5 objectives introduce all the aspects of the event. We have the catering, food and beverage, the waste management, which is very important, and we are facing the most difficult issues in the waste management procedure: procurement and supply chain, transportation and accommodation, engagement and education. It is very important when you think about a sustainable event not to forget how to engage all the athletes, all participants, to be part of the sustainability plan, to be more environmental friendly in all of their actions. So just a quick overview of all these objectives. We are trying to reduce the single-use plastic. We are trying to reduce the paper consumption, food consumption, to reduce the carbon footprint of transportation, and to educate, yes, thank you, to educate all the participants for our efforts.
Some more details of the domains and the objectives of the event. We will not go through one by one, but as we said at the beginning of the introduction, basically what sustainability is doing is that we try to take through this checklist, and we try to find the most effective way on how to reduce the environmental impact of the event throughout the society and the local community where the event is located. So, as we all know, we have been into a COVID crisis for over the past 2 years, and that has created, of course, has affected the sports industry as well, with many events that have been postponed or cancelled. The fans weren't able to participate and to be there at the events. And of course, that had an environmental impact as well. What we are facing right now is that there are many new protocols and guidelines from the committees and the organizations that they are responsible for the event. And that, of course, has the same impact in the environment. Either sometimes it's positive, either sometimes negative. Of course, the most important is the single-use products that they have been dramatically increased during an event. It has been estimated that only for 2020, only for the face masks, that added an additional 7 million metric tons of waste into the landfills and the oceans, only from the face masks. So the waste management, we can say that it wasn't ready for COVID. So more masks, more hygiene, hand sanitizers, more gloves, more packaging, all this creates more waste for the event. And in many of the occasions, it's not easy to avoid due to the protocols and the guidelines that existed at the moment. In terms of positives, let's say that we didn't have funds in the stadiums for several months, so that create reduce on the emissions and the transportation and all these things for the environment, but of course for the teams, the economic impact, it was in some cases it reaches the 15% of the GDP of that it has been produced from the sport activities. Or moreover, many leagues and organizations such as NBA or EuroLeague, they created some specific bubbles that made much less traveling for the team. So that also reduced the carbon footprint of the event in all those cases. So when we discuss about the major sporting events, in terms of sustainability approach, it's something that it's not only for what's happening at the event during the duration of the event, let's say 1 week or 1 month, but in case, for example, of the Olympic Games, this is something that starts 6, 7, 8 years before, from the nomination of the host city and country until the end of the event. So as we realize, this creates that has an impact in the environment, and we can see here the example of the Olympic Games, the World Cup, the Rugby World Cup, the NFL, the Super Bowl. We see that all these events have emissions to the environment that it can go from 1 to 3 million tons per event. So we realize that it's not just about taking care about recycling or packaging, but transportation and the designing of the event, of the venues. It's something very important for the sustainability approach of the event. So we have seen some bad practices, we have seen some good practices. I think many of us, we have been witnesses of some events, for example, marathon, that the plastic bottles that are being used throughout the event needs to be considered and to find a way to minimize this usage, either from more effective packaging to less water in the bottles or to other type of bottles, because now it's more and more concern from the athlete community and the social impact of the event that this kind of images will not be part of the event and the photos and the videos that comes after it, because the people in the social media, they react in such images from the event. But we don't want to talk about the bad practices, we want to focus on the best practices. And as we said before, venues is also very important. And it's been a part of all the major events and the sport clubs that they try to build new venues that they have The sustainable approach is on the top level when designing the event. So we can see from Johan Cruyff Arena in Amsterdam in Holland, from the Atlanta Falcons team in USA, or the World Game Stadium in Taiwan, that by creating, putting solar panels and have a renewable energy for the event or for the rainwater collection, that creates a much less energy consumption and water usages for the events, that this has a very important impact for the results of the event and the venues. And as we see in the case of a World Game Stadium in Taiwan, that the energy that is being used from the solar panels, it's then later sold to third parties that they can use the renewable energy. If we focus then to other events, we have some examples of events around the world and associations that they have their sustainability approach. For example, the Waste Management Phoenix Open, it has been declared that over the past 8 years since the largest zero waste sport event, that everything that it has been produced and consumed from the event, it's either recycled or composed or donated to associations or local community, or all the signs that have been used, they have been reused later, or the building materials that have been used for the event, then it goes to the local communities. So this is, let's say, one very successful event. It's a golf event. The same with the NHL, the National Hockey League in USA and Canada, that they have a very environmental approach and specific guidelines to the teams on how they will organize the games every time there is a game. Or the football club, the Forest Green Rovers, that they have, they are considered to be the greenest football club in the world. Their energy, their stadium, the generation of the generated energy comes 100% from renewable energy. Everybody in the club, they are 100% vegan. Of course, this is an approach that we all know in the food industry, what it means, the food and the meat consumption in terms of emissions into the atmosphere. So the club is 100% vegan, and they try to have a minimum packaging for everything that it's been consumed during those events. And of course, one Danish team that, excuse me that I can't pronounce the name well, but it's owned by a non-profit organization. So it means that all the profit goes to environmental activities and actions, and that even the players, the contract that they have, the 2 or 3% of the contracts, they go to environmental activities. And of course, as we discussed about the Sustainable Development Goals, the team is promoting the gender equality. Something that is very important to be discussed about the environment and the sport events, it's the air pollution. We have gathered three case studies. The one is for the National Football League in USA, the other one for the baseball and the NCAA, the college basketball in US. And we can see that in NFL, that the venues, they can be up to 100,000 people attendances for the event, that for every 10,000 people that they are attending the event, the air quality index is being decreased for 0.3 in the metric system of the air quality index. So it means that this has a major impact in the environment and the air. So if we think about that, one of the studies in the baseball league, they are saying that by the air pollution for the athletes, that leads to them to make 2 extra incorrect calls out of the 100 due to this air quality that it's been The air quality has been decreased during the event due to the many people attending the event. And of course, about the indoor games as the college basketball, in Columbia, when they hosted the event in 2019, the air quality has been worse for almost 5 times comparing what it was before the event for this specific area and the indoor venue. So what can we do in order to prevent the air pollution during a sport event? First of all, the organization needs to have a more clean transport policy. What that means? That they should encourage the people that are going to attend the event, from the volunteers, the athletes, and the fans, to have either free public transportation or a discount when they go to the event. And that, in order to be done, they need to work with the local authorities that they are in, based on the event and the venue that it is located. Myself, I am a huge MotoGP fan, so I'm going to events around the world. And I remember being in Brno in Czech Republic, and for the MotoGP race, over the 3 days of the event, there were public local buses that they were taking all the people free of charge to the event. We are talking about 150,000 people attending the event, and during around the circuit there were no cars. Nobody went there with a car, only people with motorbikes. So we realized how it needs to be, and how to be organized, the organizers with the local authorities, for the people to attend the event in a more cleaner way. Another way to prevent this is to measure the venue air quality before the event. So then when we see the result before and after, we have the data, and we realize that how much a sport event affects the air quality, because we see how it was before. So those are some very important and basic steps in order to improve the air quality, not just for the event, but also for after the completion of this event. Another case study that we are focusing is a mega sport event, such as the Winter Olympics, and we are focusing on the Beijing Winter Olympics 2022, that they had some 2 very important good and bad milestones. The one, it was that the venues were powered completely from renewable energy, 100%. That was a major step and milestone for the mega events. And also the gender equality, those are the best numbers that we have seen so far. However, 100% of the snow that it needed for the venues, it came from artificial snow. And that raised the question of how the climate crisis affect the Winter Olympic Games, and how we could find a way, and what would be the proper host for the next Winter Olympic Games. Because by having 100% artificial snow, that means that there is a tremendous usage of water during the event for creating the artificial snow. And because we need some chemicals for the snow in order not to be decomposed easily, we don't know when the snow melts what would be the effect in the landfills in the area that is the event. So those are big questions. And if we see in the next slide, all the hosts of Winter Olympic Games, if we focus on the next 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years, we will see that many of the cities that they host the Winter Olympic Games in the past, they have a high risk, or they are non-reliable to host these events. So that raised big and important questions to the Olympic Committee, or of which cities and countries are suitable to host the Winter Games, because we need to focus not only on the renewable energy, but we need to focus on the environmental impact that artificial snow has to the environment in that areas. As we said at the beginning, even if we plan a perfect event, even if everything in terms of sustainability is perfectly planned, the most important aspect that defines the success of the event is the human behavior. From the organizers, from the volunteers, the athletes, and most importantly, the fans and the attendants of the event, everybody needs to have a pro-environmental behavior and awareness. This comes from the proper education of the people and the proper information of the people prior to the event and during the event. This is very, very, very important. And what we are trying to do when cooperating in the sustainability of the events is to inform the people from several months before the event. It's very important for the athletes to know, and the fans to know, that this organization, it cares, this event cares about the environment, and there need to be done several steps for that. We said about the effective transportation. Fans and athletes should use public transportation when they go to the event. And of course, something very important is we should eat and drink what we buy. So waste management is very important as well. So whatever we are producing, we should consume it all. So when we buy something to eat, we should eat it all. And then when we eat it, then we should throw the garbages to the correct bins. So later on, all these will be collected and either recycled or composed, or find other ways these to be collected in an effective way. And the last but not least is to be paperless. From the tickets of the events, from the information of the event, the digital content and the magazines, all this stuff needs to be paperless, so we reduce the consumption of the paper. So, how to organize sustainable sport activities? As organizations, we need to, and we know that we need to be in line with the protocols and the requirements that needs to be done due to COVID, but we need to make sure that all the standards be met and that we have a proper waste management of the event. And throughout the whole event and before the event, to promote practice and tactics on saving energy, water, to be effective on all these matters. And the same goes with the athletes and the fans, of course, to put everything in the correct bins, to go in the event with an effective transportation way, not disturb the environment that we go there, and in a way that, because the local community, it has a rhythm before, and we need to make sure that the impact after the event, it won't be tremendous for these areas. So, Amaryllis.
Just to conclude our presentation, again, it's very important to remember that sustainability, it's not about only the environment, it's about the social benefits, the economic benefits, and about the impact we have to the local communities. So those are the 10 golden rules. When you plan to have a sustainable event, commit sustainability as a team, facilitate accessible venues and services, travel lightly, buy local, ethical, and green products where relevant, recruit locally, operate efficiently, minimize waste to landfill, reduce, reuse, recycle. The 3 R's that are very important when you organize such huge events. Facilitate participation of minority groups, leave a positive legacy, and of course, celebrate and share successes. Again, it's very important to engage everyone in the event, from the participants, the organizers, the funds, the local communities, and the volunteers. And just to finish our presentation, I want to say that sport has played an important role in all societies and acted as a strong communication platform that can be used to promote a culture of peace. It is one of the most cost-effective and versatile tools to promote sustainability and raise awareness for the environmental issue. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Amaryllis, Mr. Orestis Angouridakis. I will now hand you over to Mr. Sotiris Milonas for his comment on the subject. Mr. Milonas.
Good evening. Thank you for this event. The presentation was very well to the point with all the issues that we're facing now in terms of sustainability. I have a few slides I will share with you, many common areas covered already. So before saying my presentation, I want to say that we have a lot of challenges, and COVID is not the only challenge. Now we have a very huge challenge with the Ukraine issue, and we hope that peace will come to the world very quickly. And then we have to adapt with all the climate issues and the climate problems that are very, very important. And believe me, COVID was something very small if we compare with the climate issues that we need to face. I want to say a few things about the framework, the European framework and the Green Deal. And it's something that the European Union has decided for all the countries of the European Union, and also all the countries that have signed the Climate Paris Agreement, that 2050 is the limit to not to exceed 1.5 degrees, which is a tipping point in terms of climate issues. So all this is under the framework of Green Deal, and Greece, all the EU countries have to comply with many regulations. So we have the regulation that is coming very quickly. It's postponed because of this Ukraine issue, is the climate law that will affect also the sports events. So there's a requirement to reduce the climate and the carbon emissions by 30% in the coming years up to 2030. We have the law for the waste management. As Pai said, waste is a challenging problem, especially for Greeks and Greek islands. And recycling is not the solution because recycling is not sustainable. So we have to focus in areas like prevention and stopping plastic waste and things like that. And another point that also it was said before, and I will say in my presentation, is about greenwashing. So we have the issue of sustainability in sports events, which is the Beijing is shared.
I think we need some minutes for Mr. Milonas to find the share screen.
Sorry for this. Screen, I'm not sure.
Allow a few minutes for the technical difficulties. Unfortunately, Mr. Milonas cannot share the screen. Is it possible for you to continue without it? I think it's frozen. Let's give a minute to Mr. Milonas. So let's give a minute for that. And if you don't mind, Mrs. Amaryllis and Mr. Angouridaki, let's continue with the first question from the audience.
Of course.
So it was, the first question was, based on your experience, what is the biggest misconception about sustainability?
Through the sport events, probably. I think that when you think about sustainability,
okay.
I was moved to another room. I don't know what happened.
Okay, so let's see which way do we go. Mr. Milonas, is it possible for you to share the screen?
Yes, of course.
Or do you need some time?
No, fine.
Okay, so if you don't mind, Mr. and Mrs. Angouridaki, let's continue with Mr. Milonas and follow the program. Thank you. So,
okay.
Mr. Milonas, it's up to you.
Thank you. Sorry for this. It happens with internet. Always, all these hybrid events have problems. So I was talking about greenwashing, and the case of Beijing 2022 Winter Olympics was a case of greenwashing because 2 million cubic meters of water was used to cover all the artificial snow used, and huge energy, even it was renewable, was used to support this event. So the case of greenwashing is always an issue that should be considered when you're designing a sustainability event. So what is the problem? What is the problem? The problem is that if we exceed the 1.5 degrees, that this is written by the International Panel of Climate Change, then huge problems will occur. That's the problem of a lot of the water rise, climate change, very excessive winds, issues like that will happen. And this is a tipping point that we need to consider. Everybody has a small little piece to give, and the sports event must be sustainable. And I will focus again on the key points for sustainability for events. So areas to focus: accommodation, climate, carbon, waste and waste management, plastics, which is a key issue. And if we continue like that with plastics, in a few years' time from now, we will have more plastics in the oceans than fishes. Energy, and we see the energy problem with the energy cost. What is happening? We are very dependent in fossil fuel, so we need to move quickly to renewable energy. Water and biodiversity, social responsibility, catering and food waste. Food waste, it's a dominant producer of CO2 emissions. Procurement and supply chain, transportation, education and volunteering. In all the events, you must calculate the CO2 emissions. And of course, you must start thinking hybrid events. It's not possible for sports events, but eliminating transportation is very critical. Think local and use the local assets. Locality is about food, is about culture, is about many things. Always make sustainable actions regarding suppliers and partners. Very important is to conclude with a report what happened to the event, the consumptions, the output, what was good, what was bad. You need to set up a team. If you don't have a team, you cannot make it. It's very important to partner with somebody who is knowledgeable on those areas. You need to have a team. You need to separate what everybody is doing. You need to understand what are the key sustainable issues for all the relevant stakeholders, and you need to describe the needs. You must have an action plan, otherwise you cannot do it. It's impossible to have everything perfect. So you need to focus on the key areas when organizing an event. Monitoring the results is very important. You have to monitor the energy consumption, the waste, the carbon, as I said before, and then make a public report available with all the results. But the most important area to focus is stop greenwashing by using the correct facts. This is very critical when we talk about sustainability. I don't want to add anything else. I'm available for any questions and discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Milonas. You are very quick. Thank you all. Let's move on to the Q&A session. The first question I already asked, but I will repeat for Mr. and Mrs. Angouridakis. Based on your experience, what is the biggest misconception about sustainability on sports management?
Okay, thank you. So I think that the biggest misconception is that sustainability concerns only the environment, but this is not true. The environment has impact to social and economic aspects. So when we think about sustainability, we have to think about those three pillars and their implementation and their impact on our lives. It's not only about the environment, but the environment is part of the sustainability.
So, okay, thank you. Our second question comes from Evgenia Dzoumaka, who would like to know what is the current status of sustainability regarding the Greek stadia? Do the newly established stadia take into consideration the sustainability factor?
Thank you, Evgenia, for the question. Yeah, the problem is that there are many aspects that needs to be considered. Comes from the sponsors, comes from the local community, and we can't say that we are happy in terms of how the Greek standards are implemented in this case in terms of sustainability. So there are many things that need to be considered in order to improve that.
Thank you. The third question is quite specific for the football fans. How can football clubs become more sustainable on game days? At the moment, it seems like Greek clubs are doing nothing to reduce their environmental footprint. What measures could be implemented in new stadiums or so?
Yes, that's a major concern. As we said before, for example, they need to go paperless. So we don't have paper for all the digital for all the contents of the event. Then about everything that is consumed during the event, for example, for the catering, the packaging. Based on our experience, we see that there have been no steps to improve that, to improve the packaging and all the products that are used during the event. So yeah. We are not satisfied from that, and as we said in the presentation, for the new stadiums, for example, the AEK Stadium or Panathinaikos Stadium that is going to start anytime soon, it should be the environmental approach of the event are very critical. The environmental approach of the venue is very critical in order to improve and have better results in terms of sustainability during the event.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Milonas, is anything that you would like to add on that?
Yes, of course. In terms of the Greek standards, I think at the moment there are many standards in terms of regulations for the construction, for the operation of many issues, but we need to put the puzzle together and make it happen. So for new constructions, there is a mandatory to be energy class A, for example. LEED is very difficult for a new construction in Greece. I'm an engineer, so believe me, it's something that it's quite complicated to have it at the moment. But for the venues, I think I would start from something on the top, like all the football teams, to have a sustainable policy. The issue of violence is very important, and if you don't start from making all sports peaceful and open to the societies, we cannot talk about sustainability. So we need on the top policy that all the teams and all the events are sustainable in principle, not only focus on operational issues, and then we can start talking about sustainability. So we need to educate everybody, all the stakeholders, what sustainability means, and it's not only environment. The social issue is becoming the most important one.
Thank you very much for your time. That is all the time that we had for today. I would like to remind you all to follow our hashtag FrontRunners2022. It was great having you with us. Thank you all, and
Thank
have
you
a
very
good
much.
day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.